All bad things must come to an end. This time, it's war. John Kennedy, the former drug dealer turned gangland vigilante from Belfast, Northern Ireland, returns to Sydney to collect the money he is owed, to start a new life. Despite his best efforts to leave the drug world in the past, he quickly finds himself caught in the middle of the biggest drug war in Australian history. Hello everyone, and welcome once again to the Heir's Lair. I'm your host, Jonathan Taylor. For today's video, I'll be concluding my look at Neil Walker's drug gang trilogy with a review of the last of its constituent elements. And I'll have to pick you up here for a little, so hope that's fine with you. Drug Gang Takedown. Yeah, it's got this. It's got the same cover as, or a similar cover to the rest of the trilogy. Pretty minimalistic, except with some guns and accessories. Well, I guess it makes for good marketability. And now to put you back down. Hopefully the. Okay, let me just. Yeah. Okay, that's good. Now back to the actual review, and I have to say, this little journey that has started at the beginning of summer is now at the beginning of winter at the time of this video's production reached its conclusion. But before I can really cap it off and potentially give my thoughts on the trilogy as a whole, I should talk about this book in particular and what it is about it that makes it distinctive. The TLDW for this review is Neil Walker has kind of exhausted his creativity when it comes to this book. While he is still capable of describing complex and layered descriptions that allow the settings and locations to become fully realized places that truly come to life in their own way, plotting and characterization are always at least a half step behind, which in turn means that rather than this book being a character-driven story, is more driven by what the author himself wants. Is more driven by what the author himself wants to see, than rather than what might be the most logical set of events that would result from the background that's been laid out. Still, if you've been engrossed so far in the trilogy and would like to know how it concludes, it is likely the worst you will be able to say about this book is that it is enjoyable. And now that I'm done with the general information, it's time I delve into some specifics. The plot of this book follows the same main character as the previous two, a martial artist and a reluctant gangster, John Kennedy, who, after the adventures of the previous two books, is on his way to Sydney in order to collect money so he can leave that particular drug scene behind him. Once he arrives in Sydney, however, he finds that he has to utilize his particular set of skills if he is to truly leave his life of crime behind. The book opens up in a very similar way to Fight Club, with a teaser towards a tense scene that will occur more or less towards the climax of the book. In Fight Club, however, that scene functions as a vessel or a trigger, an activator for the unease and disorientation of the audience, who then latch onto the main character in order to figure out how it is that the book is going to lead them there. That is not necessarily a tension that is bound to come over the audience when they reach at this point in the trilogy, because they know that if it pertains to violence, it is quite likely for it to come up over the course of this book. Also, I think Neil Walker really only included a reference to Fight Club because he wanted to have a reference to Fight Club. Given how many other media for men or that characterize or that are to some extent defined by violence, aggression, fury, and all that other good stuff, is name dropped both in this book and throughout the rest of the trilogy. So to that sense, it doesn't really add a lot of symbolic or thematic meaning to the to the narrative that he is trying to tell. And in fact, if I were to dig particularly deep, I think it would be fair to say that the only reason Neil included this beginning within this book is to have some level of variation with the plot, because the plot of this book is otherwise remarkably similar to the plots of the previous books. And by that I mean that all three books in this plot start out with a happy status quo. That happy status quo gets disrupted by something. Plans are then set in motion in order to address that something. Those plans work well initially, but then there is a complication that arises, a complication that leads to the to a very dramatic climax. The climax, which then gets addressed by the implementation of various forms of violence, all of which leads to a happy resolution. It's basically the same book for the third time, and it probably hits a little bit differently if you read these books back to back to back, where they come across as consistently following a theme rather than repeating each other. But I can't really say I'm finding that, and really the only theme this series has engaged in so far is that violence is brutal, is in small doses cool, in larger cases brutal, and occasionally within that spectrum it is necessary. That is really the depth of the thematic messaging we're going for here. It's not so yeah, and there isn't really any other aspect of the structure of this book that really provides a commentary on that. It is really just here for really just there for fun. And that lack of innovation comes across in terms of the characterization as well. This trilogy never really had a great hand in characterization, I have to say. Neil Walker Neil in general does actually make sure that his characters still act in character. Their behaviors are still in accordance with their established characteristics, and he actually does a pretty good job even within this book of establishing character dimension, of establishing who these characters are in such a way that they still stand out among the crowd. But when it comes to actual character development, I bring a character from point A to point B. The main indication in that direction comes primarily from John mentioning that he desires to leave his life of crime behind, and then constantly having to lock that desire away, and Blair, one of his former lieutenants, who somewhat suddenly decides to undergo the same change. The rest of the cast, however, doesn't really receive any similar level of definition. They are really just the muscle that brings the story to the next plot beat that the author intends it to arrive at. And the next plot beat is mostly another action scene. When it comes to the action scenes, however, those work out quite well. Neil is, as I've said in the TLDW, very adept at describing locations and at giving the audience just enough information about the about the setting and the various relevant points within it, in order to allow his audience to visualize the scenery of where the violence is going to take place. And and when it comes to the action scenes, he is quite expertly capable of imparting on them the grit and impact that they would logically have, making any attack, be it unarmed, blunt, bladed, or via firearm, have the impact that it would the consistency and severity that it would logically have. This book is very much built around the action, and that makes it the best part of the book. Overall, more than any other element in this trilogy, the conclusion relies very heavily on its main hook, i.e., the application of violence, in order to carry or further itself, and with very little additional elements to add any layer of complexity or dimensionality. My final rating for Drug Gang Takedown is a 3 out of 5. And that was my review. Thank you for your attention. Going a little bit off script and talking about the rest of the trilogy, it's basically the printed version of a popcorn movie. Like, it knows how to grab your attention, and the various let's say visual elements are described in are introduced in such a way as to make for an exciting package that makes the actual content slim as it is, given it is just action, come to life to the degree that makes it most intriguing. It is it is a very simple story, but it is told with the full weight and really presentation backing that it can that it could have. And while I had a good time reading through this trilogy, I don't really see myself either returning to it or finding any kind of discussion group about it, assuming there are any. Anyway, that was my trilogy overview as well. So if you've enjoyed it, if you've enjoyed the review, the overview, the previous reviews, or or anything like that, well then please like the video. Maybe even share it wherever you think other people will also like the video. If there is anything you'd like to add, either to the book itself, the trilogy, or my review or reviews of it, that's what the comment section is for. And if you want to see when my next video gets released, well then please subscribe. And ideally also ring the bell or do whatever else YouTube will ask of you in order to keep you notified. My books, the first of my own Heir to the Empire series, The Next Generation and A Path Not Taken, are available at various book retailers under their respective master links in the description down below, right past my social media links, which I would suggest you check out should you choose to. Additionally, I have a second channel where you can see me talking about whatever else crosses my mind, though most of the time it'll still be about storytelling, but in media outside of the printed word. If you want to hear more about my thoughts on the printed word medium, then I suggest you stay on this channel and go through my extensive backlog of book reviews, writing advice, and miscellaneous other connected topics, obviously. If none of those interest you, then I suggest you go ahead and do whatever you want with the rest of your day, because it is your day after all. And yeah, that was all I had to say. Until next time, I am Jonathan Taylor, and this has been the Heir's Lair.